What do you expect to be accomplished first and foremost at this meeting?
This is a process. Nothing ever gets finished at any one of these meetings. You build up and you build up. What comes out is, these are the 7 of the largest economies in the world. They're crucial to the, to making things happen, whether on finance, whether on the economy, whether on trade, whether on environment, whether on governance issues, etc. So when you focus, when you converge in a meeting like this, when people go out with a stronger will, if you will, with a conviction that they got to push certain things, nothing gets decided in the sense of it being a decision-making body. But then you go to the different organizations, you do go to the World Bank, you go to the IMF, you go to the OECD, you go to the WTO, the World Health Organization. You make things happen. Today we're talking in the seminar about inclusive growth, about the question of inequalities, and how do you deal with inequalities, and how inequalities actually, if taken beyond certain extreme, affect growth. And therefore, it's not just an ethical question or a moral question, even a political question. It's a very, very important economic issue that we have to address.
When you talk about inclusive growth and inequality, I think about globalization and trade. Most of the people in this meeting are very much pro-trade. They want to keep it status quo, with the exception maybe of the U.S. delegation. Has this globalization that we've experienced in the last few years pushed the inequality that seems to be growing worldwide?
It's not globalization. Let's not blame globalization, because there are individual policies in each of the countries that put together may be responsible for some of the undesirable results of what we call globalization. But you can't say globalization and trade. The problem with globalization doesn't have a body. It doesn't have a face, doesn't have a neck where you can hang it from if you want to. You basically, then you take a proxy. And people use trade as a proxy. So you try to blame it on trade. Trade was not meant to address all of the problems of the world and the questions of inequality and the questions of, level playing field, etc. It was meant to be one of the cylinders of the growth engine, together with investment, together with skills, together with better regulations, together with more competition. And you have to make everything happen rather than focus on one particular sector or one particular cylinder of the growth engine, because then your diagnosis would be wrong. And you would basically be typically, barking up on the wrong tree.
You mentioned level playing field. Makes me think of, Donald Trump has been calling for that. Steve Mnuchin, the U.S. delegation, seems to think that there isn't a level playing field, but it's getting leveled. Do you think with the agreement with China, now President Trump is saying that China is no longer manipulating currencies and others have stopped since he took office, are they coming on board the sort of free trade boat here?
Oh, there is today a big discussion, when we get together and try to write a communique on whether the word is free trade or fair and balanced trade. I think we should focus a lot more on the policies and the actual, decision-making and the agreements rather than necessarily on the wording. But I think if you focus on free, everybody says, yes, free should be part of the equation. Rules-based is another part of the equation. But what are the rules about? And what is fair about? Well, if you're saying no subsidies, I would say yes, this is fine, then you would say no protectionism. I would say yes, this is perfectly fine. And then no currency manipulation. This is perfectly fine. The question is when you move from there.
Those are 3 phrases, by the way, not likely to be in the communique.
Well, but let me put it this way. These are the things that one should actually be practicing every day, because that is what will make for what is called balanced trade, which means a trade that will result in the actual competitive advantages that are legitimate, given the endowment of the countries, both of natural resources as well as of human resources, and of the skills they may have developed over time. Because many countries with very scarce natural resources will develop their human resources to a great extent, and then they will become a powerhouse. They will, they will become leaders in technology. They will become leaders in high value-added activities, etc. And this is where we have to, get our lessons and go for the best practices.
The big, powerful countries are all represented here. The poorer countries that are having problems, less so. Greece is one of those that will probably be in focus. We've heard very optimistic statements about the fact that you could actually get a conclusion to the Greek debt problem maybe by the Eurogroup meeting on May 22nd. What do you think about that?
Well, Greece is a member of the OECD. We work very, very closely with them. As we speak, we're working on competition issues. We're working on education issues. We're working, on what I would call the future, the tomorrow of Greece, beyond the shorter-term agreement with their creditors.
Is debt relief necessary to have that tomorrow?
Well, the question is, they need space in order to be able to grow again, because the burden of the debt is too heavy. The problem today is that most of the debt, if not all of the debt, is public debt in the way, it comes from the IMF or it comes from the European taxpayers one way or the other. And therefore, that is more rigid in terms of giving, net debt reductions than it was when it was private, when it was bonded debt, where you could have had a market-based, very, more traditional type of negotiation and really reduced at least by half. But we lost that opportunity. We're now, left with the consequences of having lent to Greece to pay at 100 cents on the dollar or the euro to their borrowers, and now they're left with a very large burden, but with a very rigid. So the question then is windows of opportunity, the cost thereof, so that the medium and long-term real cost of the debt is reduced by virtue of having lower interest rates. But the question is not about whether you invite, developing countries here to participate. Just imagine the fact that the G7 ministers of finance and governors of central banks came here to listen to 3 or 4 of the most important experts on inclusive growth issues. They're being exposed to Angus Deaton and being exposed to Philippe Arjon and to Mr. Bertone. So this is quite remarkable.